does add a lot of personnel part one impacting the way the previous recommendation. Previous recommendation was to offer it for a trial period. And there's an approval process. I don't know exactly what I saw. So the approval process is policy framework.
Okay, welcome everyone here today. We'll declare the meeting open at 4:01. Members of the public are advised that recommendations to council contained within this agenda can be subject to change. Applicants and other interested parties should refrain from taking any action until written advice is received confirming council's decision with respect to any particular issue. Any statement or insinuation of approval regarding any planning or development application made during ordinary council meeting is not to be taken as a notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of that application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council. Council members and the community are reminded that should an exception resolution be passed, this has the effect of making the decision to accept the officer's recommendation stated in the agenda as the council's decision without change. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming of these proceedings and uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community, and we pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and to their cultures and to elders both past, present and emerging. I, as Shire President, in accordance with Regulation 14C of the Local Government Administration Regulation 1996, approve the below listed councillors to attend this ordinary council meeting via electronic means. I am satisfied that all councillors meet the definition of a suitable place as stipulated in Regulation 14A 4B. Councillor Amanda Lovett, attending from 72 Braidwood Drive, Australind, Western Australia, 6233. Is that correct, Councillor Lovett?
Yes, it is, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Francis Burgoyne is attending from Coolonup Emergency Services Centre, 18 Cocky Road, or Cocky Bend, Collie, WA 6225. Is that correct, Councillor Burgoyne?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. I'll put forth the following procedural motion that Council suspend Standing Orders Part 8, Clause 8.5, members to indicate their intention to speak and to rise when speaking, to allow members to remain seated when speaking, to improve the quality of the audio recording of the meeting. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bromham. Is likely to be any discussion? I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Item 2, record of apologies and leave of absence. Nil apologies, any leave of absence?
Yes, Mr Chair, if I may.
Next one, Councillor. You're Nil. Item 3, application for leave of absence. Councillor Lovett requests a leave of absence from Monday the 13th of June 2022 until Friday the 24th of June 2022 inclusive. So we have a motion that the leave of absence be granted to Councillor Lovett from Monday the 13th of June 2022 until Friday 24th of June 2022 inclusive. We have moved Councillor Coleman, second Councillor Campbell. I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Enjoy, Councillor Lovett. Item 4.
Because I've got to work full time for a fortnight.
Reading from a book of learning and wisdom. Councillor Crispin.
What we do today will impact us all tomorrow, so do what is right for tomorrow, not just for today.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 5, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. Are there any others that aren't currently listed on the screen? Councillor Coleman.
I'll add my name to the same as 18.2.1. A number of the nominees are known to me.
Impartiality, Councillor Coleman and
Exactly
Stone
the
Chambers.
same. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, did you good?
All good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Item 6, response to previous questions taken on notice is nil. Item 7, public question time. Narelle Celesano. Over to you, Narelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to know the dinner at dusk vans that come last season, will they be coming again this year? And the Up in Smoke, how many days will they be trading?
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Mr. Hall.
Thanks, Rel. As you know, the last one for dinner at dusk was on the 14th. We've not received any application for anything going forward, so we don't know. But at this stage, nothing's been applied for and nothing's been approved. That's for dinner at dusk. And as far as how many days for Up in Smoke, they've actually not made an application at this stage, so we don't know. We do know that the application that they applied for down at Ridley Place was for 4 days, but they've never ever done that. They've only ever done it for 1. We have been discussing the likelihood of them doing sort of a trial, and they have clearly indicated to us that they are more than willing to engage with business owners and work around a preferred time frame. So they are very mindful of wanting to talk and get something right.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, item 8, petitions, deputations and presentations. Tim Devereux, would you like to do yours first?
Thank you to the Shire President, councillors and staff for this opportunity to speak. My name is Tim Devereux and I'm very grateful for the book of learning today, Do What Is Right for Tomorrow. I've been here before to ask that the asbestos-clad RSL Hall be totally demolished, removed as part of the Harvey precinct redevelopment, but my plea has been ignored. The airborne fibres, asbestos fibres, much finer than a human hair, can kill years after lodging in the lung. Removing the asbestos will leave the building with millions of fibres in the structure and expose people to risk long into the future. The building is currently used as a playgroup, exposing young families. A ball hitting the wall, people hanging things on the walls, or a tradesman doing work will dislodge fibres. Asbestos is the greatest industrial accident to date in Australia, continuing to kill thousands each year worldwide. Australia has the second highest recorded death rate from mesothelioma in the world. The government recommends removal and demolition of buildings opportunistically. We have a great opportunity. The current Harvey Community Precinct plan to demolish 2 brick buildings that are of historical significance is not in line with community expectations. The old Child Health building, which was extended about 20 years ago for the home and community care, is currently used as Shire office space. Recent Shire information that a smelly musk smell from some offices is coming from a septic tank built over during the extensions 20 years earlier. I find this unbelievable. Who permitted the building extension over a septic tank? Who decided the building now needs to be demolished because of the smell? I believe there is something else causing the smell that could more easily be rectified with the building serving the community for another 50 or 100 years. The old Catholic school classrooms, currently used by the Harvey District Creative Arts Centre, is another brick building enjoyed by groups using it. 2 rooms with easy access from a car park only 10 metres from the door. Great for unloading projects or assisting elderly people trying to stay active and involved in the community. Accessibility is part of the Harvey Shire mantra, removing barriers for people. Shire staff have reported this building is structurally not sound and needs to be demolished. A crack I've seen from the car park does not seem to warrant the demolition. Inside the building looks in very good condition. Who decided this building needs to be demolished? I believe this building could also serve the community for another 50 or 100 years. The election has shown us that climate change is a real concern for the community. Demolishing good sound buildings creates huge amounts of waste unnecessarily. The embodied energy is wasted. With a little maintenance, these 2 historic buildings will serve the community well long into the future. I like to make informed comment. So I took time to talk to library staff, Community Resource Centre, radio station, Harvey District Creative Arts Centre, Shire staff before submitting my submission and plans to the community questionnaire about 10 months ago. I walked the area, took photos and requested access to buildings. The architect, I believe, also did some of these things, but failed to take into account what was said and reported by community groups. The plan did not even include the names of groups or adequate parking. The area currently has parking for at least 80 cars, which would all go, and a new 24-bay car park would be constructed on the site of the Child Health Centre. I was told a new car park would be constructed on the site of the skate park over the road. Do we not value young people? Surely they should remain, surely they are and should form a very important part of the recreation ground and precinct. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, and at the 11th hour, now new plans are emerging. I have found the Shire helpful and accessible over the past 30 to 40 years, liaising with many of the building and engineering staff. I trained as a plumber with a civil engineering and construction firm and worked for them for 10 years. I have an understanding of building and have worked in the Harvey community for 40 years. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Jim. Is there any questions, councillors, at all? Councillor Barney.
Yeah, just a question to staff. With respect to the RSL building, the other buildings are part of the Harvey precinct, which is a matter of consultation at the moment, I believe, and workshopping. But with regards to the RSL building, the asbestos audit was done of the whole Shire, wasn't it, some years ago. Is there any plans for this RSL building, or does anyone know what was planned for it?
Yeah, look, the whole site was investigated as part of the master planning process, and just in regards to the 3 buildings that have been mentioned, the RSL, the St Anne's and the Infant Health Clinic, the Shire has a municipal heritage inventory register, and of those only the RSL is listed in that inventory with a rating of 2, which is conservation is highly desirable. So at the moment we do have an asbestos management plan. However, I'm unaware that there is any danger with the asbestos in its current condition. So as part of the master planning for the site, it was to retain the RSL hall in line with that inventory, as is every heritage building on that site that's in the inventory register. But yeah, through our asbestos management plan, it doesn't pose a current danger.
Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mr. President. Can I just query if
Is it accurate that there is a sewage problem at the Infant Health Centre? Because my understanding is that we have staff working in that building. So is that unsafe? Is that an actual problem, or is there something else that could be causing that issue?
I've been advised anecdotally that there are smells emanating from that building. What the cause of it is unable to be confirmed as it's underneath the building, but I'm aware that plumbers have been on site in the past and have been unable to identify any issue that could be rectified. I just also did want to make a comment in regards to the Harvey skate park and parking. The skate park, there has been a report to council for the relocation of the skate park to Merredin Park, and there is funds in this coming year's budget for that construction. So just so that the community is aware that the Shire does value youth, and the plan is for upgraded facilities in another location. In regards to the new plans that are emerging, that has been the work that has been in response to the council resolution in regards to amending the master plan as a result of the community consultation, which is a process which is being undertaken today.
Councillor Bromwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I just wanted to, the other two buildings that the gentleman was mentioning and said they were historic buildings. Can you give me some context about those buildings? One, if they're historic, and the other, the engineering problems with those buildings.
Mr. Hall.
Councillor, look, to be fair, it's probably difficult to provide some information on the heritage values of those buildings because they're not actually on our MHI, so we actually haven't assessed those buildings, and at the time that it was being done, they didn't meet the sort of the eligibility criteria. Now that eligibility criteria changes on a yearly basis. We haven't reviewed whether or not they should be retained on the MHI or entered onto the MHI at this stage, so I couldn't tell you, to be honest. As far as the engineering of those buildings, again, we would need to do a property inspection. I think there was one done as part of the preliminary consideration of all the buildings, but I'd need to have a look and see whether that was done on each of those individual buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Is it possible to make a comment? It's not correct, proceed.
Yeah. Sorry, Tim. Yeah. Norelle.
Good afternoon, President, Chairman and Councillors. My name's Norelle Solisano. Me and my husband Dom own and run Anchovies Pizza in Harvey, and we've been there since 2003. We only trade over the dinner period at night time, which is Thursday to Sunday from 5 till 9 p.m. And as you know, like Harvey's cafe and food, trading at the moment is pretty trying in a small town. We've only got Treendale 25 minutes down the road, so that's sort of had a bit of an impact on us in the past 10 years. Our business is small. We only run 14 hours a week, but we sponsor most of the local sporting groups, so we actually sponsor the Harvey Bulls, the local swimming carnival, the Harvey Basketball Association, both the primary schools, St Anne's and Harvey Primary, the Lions Club, and also the Cancer Council. And to date, we've donated over $3,000 this year. We just think that local businesses should be treated as assets because we're the ones that give back to the community. Brings me to the food vans, which we've had when Dinner at Dusk came last season. We were only notified about it on a Facebook notice on the Harvey notice board page. I did approach Simon Hall. I called him, yet it still went ahead. He did say it was in a trial phase. They're set up 100 metres across the road from our business, so we're on Harper Street. They set up in Snells Park. Now, on those nights when Dinner at Dusk is there, I know it's only one Saturday in a month, but our turnover is 30% down, always and at least. So it's a little bit hard. We employ 6 junior kids that live in the town. They're all juniors, they all attend school. So on those nights, it's quiet, we shut, and we have to send them home early, which is a bit disappointing. And when trying to find a job in Harvey is, it's a bit hard. There's not many places you can get employment. So to get an email to say that the Up in Smoke was coming and they could trade up to four nights a week between 3 and 8 p.m. Was absolutely shattering. We do already have like the 3 local events, which in all respect we're okay with that. They're local, they bring services to Harvey. It's the Harvey Show, the Harvest Festival and Gala Night. So we do lose trade there, but they're community-based events. Whereas the food trucks sort of just come park, sort of take income away from us. So we just understand that the permit can allow them up to 4 nights to come and trade across the road from us. In conclusion, I'd like to, the Shire to take into consideration that, they don't only affect our business, but they do affect everyone else's in the Shire, and, we'd hope you'd reconsider their permit coming up. Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. Has anyone, councillors, got any questions at all? Okay, thank you for your presentations. Okay, item 9, announcements by presiding member or CEO without discussion. All good. So I'd just like to welcome Renee Doyle, who's Coordinator of Governance. Welcome to the Shire, Renee. And big shout out to Dan, who's the IT man today, so everything should tick along smoothly. And also I'd just like to make mention of the Shire of Harvey is now an endorsed Waterwise Council, so congratulations to all involved in that. I'd just like to, it was a momentous day probably for the Shire, but more so for Harvey, as we had the 100-year library celebration in Harvey this morning. And as with many towns in Australia, local communities wanted to acknowledge those who served during the First World War by building a memorial. The townsfolk of Harvey chose a library and a reading room which they wanted to build close to the agricultural hall, which agriculture has played a huge part within the Harvey district. So the library was opened on Empire Day in May 2022. No, probably won that back one. 1922. So at the opening ceremony, the Governor remarked on the fitting nature of a public hall which would be a lasting and impressive memory to those who have given their lives in the Great Fight. And I think it's credit to the town of Harvey itself with the Moore Memorial, with the hall and the library there, as a reminder to many generations to come. And it was also taken 100 years to raise the Aboriginal flag at Anzac Day. So to those within that community, congratulations and well done. Big shout out to Councillor Robin Coleman for organising the Austins Club for being there today, which is also celebrating 100 years this year as well. So with all of this, I'd just like to shout out that the Shire of Harvey Libraries now have a full calendar of activities throughout the year and support regular events such as Adult Learners Week, Science Week, and of course today was the biggest morning tea for the Cancer Council, so well done. They offer garden club, book club, knit and natter, Scrabble, writers group, first time parents group, coding club, Be Connected, technical help and other happenings according to customer needs. So they are no longer halls of silence, but are instead spaces where relationships are formed and hustle and bustle is common and community members of all kinds are supported. So to all of our wonderful library staff, we're very proud of what you deliver into the community, so well done. Just like to also pass on our condolences to the family of Gordon Godber, who sadly passed away last week. He was an employee of the Shire for 11 years from 1990 to 2001 as Special Administrative Officer, and when he retired from work was a councillor from 2003 until he retired in 2011. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Okay, item 10, confirmation of minutes from the Ordinary Council meeting of Tuesday 26th of April 2022, and we have a recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday 26th of April 2022 as printed be confirmed as a true and correct record. We move Councillor Capagrego, second Councillor Crispin. Is there any questions or queries, councillors? So I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Item 11, receipt of minutes and recommendations from committees is nil. Item 12, reports. Shire of Harvey Standing Orders Local Law 2017 permits Council to adopt recommendations by exception resolution, which is on the block. So we have recommendations contained in the officers' reports to be adopted by exception resolution, with the exception of the following, which is 12.1.1, the quarterly report, as we have a impartiality interest. 12.1.2, an absolute majority is required. 12.2.2 is another absolute majority. 12.3.1, trading in public places for food, is an absolute majority required, and 12.3.3 is a use not listed, which also requires absolute majority. So is there any other items that would like to be withdrawn for exception resolution, councillors? Okay, so the exemption resolution motion that with the exception of 12.1.1 to 12.1.2, 12.2.2, 12.3.1 and 12.3.3, which are to be considered separately. The officer recommendation for items 12.2.1, 12.2.3, 12.3.2 and 12.4.1 to 12.4.2 be adopted as the council resolution. Move Councillor Caboni, second Councillor Dickinson. Likely to be any discussion? I'll put the motions. Anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Okay, item. Okay, we'll just do a roll call. Councillor Amanda Lovett, are you still able to hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burgoyne.
I'm clear, mate.
Good to hear. Okay. Item 12.1, quarterly report, quarter 3, 2021 to 2022. Okay. Move Councillor Bromham, second Councillor Boylan. Any discussion, councillors? I'll put the motions. Anyone against the motion? The motion is carried.
Mr.
Councillor Beach.
President, just maybe a point of order. We're seeing a recording of 12-0 for the council, and I think we're all present.
13.
Oh, that's me. Sorry, I can't count.
Thank you, Councillor Beach. Item number 12.1.2, lease, licence and surrender of leases. Bidding Up Bowling Club Incorporated and Bidding Up Community Association Incorporated. We have 3 recommendations. Recommendation 1 of 3. Have mover. Councillor Bromham moved. Seconder. Councillor Dickinson. Any discussion, councillors? Put the motions. Anyone against the motion? The Motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. Recommendation 2 of 3, which also is an absolute majority. Have a mover, councillors. Councillor Campbell and Councillor Jackson second. Any discussion, councillors? I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. Recommendation 3 of 3. Have a mover, councillors. Councillor Capogreco, seconder Councillor Bromham. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried. Also 13-0. Okay. Item 12.2.2, Local Roads Community Infrastructure Program Phase 3A. We have an officer recommendation. Is there a mover? Councillor Bromham move. Seconder. Councillor Crispin. Any discussion, councillors? Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. Item 12.3.1, Policy 4.3.7, Trading in Public Places for Food Vendors. There was an addendum provided to that. We have Councillor Jackson.
Just a question for staff regarding the liaison with local business and small business in the Harvey area, and whether there had been any dialogue previously, and following that desire to limit the amount of nights we allow that and how that might be achieved. If I could please.
Through Mr Chairman, I don't believe it was obviously insufficient engagement with the community based on the reaction that we're getting, so I would have to say that it was insufficient. As far as how we could limit it, the policy can be as prescriptive as we wish in regard to particular sites, timeframes and days of the week. It's not at this stage because we would receive an application through that expression of interest process and deal with each one on a case by case. Those are required to be advertised, so you would have submissions and stuff through to try and help gauge what would be appropriate. But at this stage, none of the policies are actually that prescriptive.
Councillor Beach.
Mr Chair, could I foreshadow an amendment to Officer Recommendation 2 of 2, please?
So we have a mover. Move Councillor Bromham. Seconder, Councillor Crispin. Councillor Beach. Amendment?
Yeah, an amendment to Officer's Recommendation 2 of 2. Leave the printed words as are, and to follow on from where it says attachment to this report, I would like to add, with the exclusion of Haywood Street, Snells Park from the table, appearing on 149 of the attachment, and that that location be advertised for a period for encouraging public comment. So basically the, oh, can I speak?
If we deal with one of two, sorry. Officer Recommendation 1 of 2. It has been moved and second. So is there likely to be any discussion, councillors? Okay, I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. So we have a mover and a seconder for officer recommendation 2 of 2. Councillor Dickinson and Councillor Burgoyne. Councillor Beach, you wish to move your amendment?
Yes, Mr. President.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Brommer. Councillor Beach.
Yeah, listening to the delegation we had at the agenda briefing and as of today, I think we should go down the path that we have with the other 4 sites that we have in our policy. When we adopted that policy several years ago, and each of those sites were advertised for public comment, and then we made a decision based upon the feedback and the submissions that we got. Putting Haywood Street in without the opportunity for the public and the traders of the town to have an opportunity to either support or not support the site, I think is a little bit unfair. And given the time of the year that we're in, I don't think it's going to impact upon anybody that might want to trade from there. So if we can advertise that for a period, and I'm not sure what the period would be, seeking public comment, and everybody would be happy then with the decision that council might make.
Councillor Bronwyn, or would you like to wait for?
Yeah, I'll wait. Yeah. I just wanted to see what was about for us.
Yep. Mr. Hall.
We might be achieving a double negative here. If we exclude it from the policy and advertise the policy and ask people for their comment on whether or not it should be considered, it's not in the policy for them to comment on.
It could be added later.
Well, no, I would have thought we would have left it in the policy and advertised the policy as a draft policy so that it still is yet to be sort of implemented. Does that make sense? I just think if we exclude it from there, you're not actually asking for people to provide comment on it because it's not in there.
Well, the issue is that we've already asked the communities about the 3 offshore lane sites and the Minning Up site previously, and that's how we formed our policy. We haven't asked the community what they think about Haywood Street, Snells Park. So I think it's a separate issue. We've already decided that those 4 locations are okay. The community has supported that. They haven't supported the Harvey one, and therefore I think to advertise the entire policy, it may get lost. And I'd much prefer to see the site itself advertised rather than the policy.
Okay, so if I may then, through the chair, make a recommendation that the officer's recommendation be that we endorse, yes, we endorse it with the exclusion of Snells Park, and that probably combine 2 into 1, so the vendors as provided in the attachment to this report, with the exclusion of Snells Park, and probably be specific as to which refers to in the policy, and then 2, then advertise that site for community consideration. So yes, okay. So you're still adopting the policy, just excluding it, and then you're going to go through a separate exercise to actually seek it, and depending on that, we would need to come back to amend the policy at a later stage, whether it's in or out.
Yeah, well,
complicated.
And I do apologise for not running this by you previously. It only came to light tonight. I did say with the exclusion of Haywood Street, but however you want to word that, that'd be fine with me.
That's fine, so long as we are actually advertising that particular site, because if we were to exclude it from the policy, then we wouldn't have been doing so. Okay.
Just with regards to, is there a set period? Is it 8 weeks, 6 weeks?
I would need to check the local law to see if there is anything under that.
Okay, Councillor Coleman.
Just a question, Mr. President. So does that mean that although we haven't had an application from Up in Smoke, that if we get one, it will come under this policy and be excluded at this time? Or are we obliged to take that application and process it?
Sorry, my computer shut down. The addendum that was provided made very clear reference that any application that we receive would actually still be assessed against the policy. Now, the policy at the moment doesn't include it, so we wouldn't be in a position to actually be able to do that until such time as this expression of interest or advertising for this site had been concluded, and whether or not it is actually able to be done or not. But yeah, it's complicated, but
It achieves a purpose.
It achieves what we would normally do in terms of policy. We would say, this is what I want you to do, what do you think? And then obtain, and I'm going to say anecdotal evidence. The previous resolution was to say, let's trial it and get some factual evidence and see what happens so we can make an informed decision. So we're going backwards a little bit in regard to the process that we're wanting to do to get actual versus anecdotal, but that is consistent with how we've done things previously, so I don't have a concern with the process that's being proposed. It does complicate it a little bit with regard to Up in Smoke's previous recommendation that they've got, but they're in no hurry at the moment, and they do actually have other sites that they can operate from.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Lovett, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. With the amendment that we're currently discussing, does it not leave the potential for a trader to use Harvey Street and actually be closer to an existing business? My concern is that we're doing this on the hop because it specifies Hayward Street and Snells Park, and yet that doesn't address land near the museum and what have you that could potentially be a site. So I'd like to see some more investigation.
Through Mr. Chair, look, Councillor Lovett, any particular trader can actually apply anywhere at the moment that's outside the policy as well. So this policy relates to specific sites that we're actually going to be doing licences and charging a commercial fee. That doesn't stop us receiving and processing any applications that are outside this policy and consistent with our current sort of framework. So. No, I don't believe we should be or could be going in and excluding absolutely everything at the moment. That would be against our current framework.
Okay, is there likely to be anyone speak against the amendment?
I'm not.
Councillor Campbell.
I'm not speaking against it. I just want some assurance or clarification that on our meeting on the 26th of April, we've made a resolution that we would, the CEO was invited to contact Up in Smoke and that we would give them a 6-month trial. So, and now we're saying we're not going to stand by that resolution. How I'm just a bit confused as how we're going to move forward without Up in Smoke getting upset because we've already made that resolution, regardless of whether Up in Smoke have followed up or not. But we've already made that resolution, so I don't see how we can go forward with this one. Just seeking some guidance, please.
So that invitation's been extended. We have engaged with Up in Smoke. They're not obligated to put anything in. They haven't as yet. They have been very amenable in regard to the discussion, and they are aware of, not necessarily the resolution of now, but they are aware of the concerns. In my dealings with them, which are generally third hand, the manager of environmental health services engages with them more directly. I believe that they would see this as being a setback, but I don't believe they would be too upset about it and be happy to actually allow this process to go through, so then they can see whether or not it is actually an invitation that they are willing and have the capacity to actually accept. We're not It's not fine and nice and clean. It does complicate it, but we're fortunate that the applicant is actually amenable today with getting things right and dealing with what we've got.
Yeah, it still doesn't sit comfortably with me. To me, I believe we have to rescind that decision and then move forward with the alternate amendment.
And I had the same concerns as well. You can't revoke a decision that has been acted on, and the invitation has been given to Up and Smoke to submit an application, or contact has been made, so it's not able to be revoked. I'm just wondering whether the wording in regards to invite an application actually doesn't determine that the application is going to be approved. So whether
to go through the
application process.
They still have to go through the application process. If we weren't amending the recommendation, the framework would be there for us to allow to actually assess it at the time. What we've done is actually defer whether or not that framework is going to be in place, because we want to make sure that that framework isn't at odds with business and community expectations as to whether it should be there in the first place. So it is deferring the ability to assess the application that we've invited them to put it in, but it's not stopping them from putting it in.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
Hello.
Hello, Courtney.
Through the chair. So any application as submitted would be assessed on the current policy of council at the time. So if Up and Smoke have yet to make their application, then yeah, the application, I guess, can't be assessed against any policy. So they make it after this resolution, then it will be assessed against the policy as endorsed by council. So that clear it up.
Thanks for that, Courtney.
Yeah, so in effect, the previous resolution, although we did invite them, did specifically say invite, not that we would approve a permit for trading in Snell Park. So they're yet to make the application. The application will be assessed on the current council policy, which is being endorsed today. So if it doesn't include Snell Park, then officers will be able to make a decision to approve it.
Okay. Thanks for your input, Courtney. Okay. Is there any other questions, queries? There's likely to be any other discussion? Councillor Beach, your...
Yes, thank you. The item 5 of the minutes of the recommendation we passed just says that it requests the executive officer, chief executive, to invite them for trading, for a trading permit and so forth. There was no indication there that approval would be given, depending on what the application was coming in for. And there is really still no exception for them to make an application, as Mr. Hall has said. Anybody can make an application to trade from anywhere within the Shire, whether it's in this policy or not, and it will be assessed upon its merits. What I'm trying to achieve is that because we've had some pushback on listing that particular site in a policy that hasn't had any scrutiny from the public, that we should give the public that opportunity to make comment. So with that, I'd just like to see it removed from the policy, and anybody that wants to make an application to Snell Park can be considered within the guidelines.
Thank you, Councillor Beach. Okay, I'll put the amendment. Is anyone against the amendment? Amendment 1. Amendment's carried at 12-1. Okay, that now becomes the...
Point of order, I think there was two that were against it, Councillor Lovett and Councillor Dickinson.
Yep. 11-2. Okay, so that now becomes the substantive. Just
it's already
Yep,
been
okay.
seconded, so it just
So
needs to be voted on.
put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion's carried 13-0. Okay, item 12.3.3, a use not listed, rural tourism, distillery and creamery, produce market, eating house and restoration works. We have recommendation 1 of 2, which requires an absolute majority. We have officer recommendation. Just moved Councillor Caboni, second Councillor Dickinson. There likely to be any discussion, councillors? No. Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? The motion is carried 13-0, absolute majority. Recommendation 2 of 2. Move Councillor Caboni, second Councillor Bromham. Any discussion, councillors? Put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried 13-0. Item 13, elected members' motions of which previous notice has been given is nil. Item 14, notice of motion for the following meeting is nil. Item 15, questions by members of which due notice has been given is nil. Item 16, reports of members to be sent in by councillors for inclusion in the minutes through the big tin can. All happy? Item 17, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of meeting is nil. Okay, item 18, matters behind closed doors. Councillor Burgoyne moving. Second, Councillor Boylan. That council will move behind closed doors in accordance with section 5.3(2)(b) of the Local Government Act 1995 as the personal affairs of any person. So I'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. I need to train up a new councillor to take over when Bergie resigns that post. So we'll put the motion. Is anyone against the motion? Motion is carried. I'll just wait to get back online.
Oh, he's online.
No, like us.
Yeah, we're on.
Oh, we're on. Ready to go.
Sorry.
Okay, item 19. As there being no further business to discuss, I will declare the meeting closed at 5:03. Thank everyone for their attendance and wish everyone a good night and a happy rest of the week.
So what was that about?
Does anyone know who it was? Who was it?
Simon knows.
Oh, Simon knows.
No, not yet. I will need to get
Simon?
In a second.
Oh, sorry.